Financial Modeling, Topic 14, Futures Contracts. Topic 3, Understanding Futures Delivery and Cheapest to Deliver and Unwinding. So exchange-traded future contracts call for the delivery of an underlying commodity of specific quality at a specific location on a specific date. Now the party that's short, the seller of the commodity in the forward or futures contract, will deliver the cheapest to deliver asset that meets the minimum requirements. So for those of you who like beer, say you're trying to hedge your purchase of beer, and you do this by entering into a beer futures contract. And say your favorite type of beer is some German beer. Well, I won't even give you the name. However, when you enter into a contract with a counterparty for them to deliver you, say, a 6-pack of beer in 1 year, if you don't specify the actual brand, they are just going to deliver the cheapest to deliver asset. So if you live in Pennsylvania in the United States, that's going to be probably IC Light, Iron City Light, one of the cheapest beers in our area. And if you were to enter into a wine contract, deliver me one bottle of wine next year. Well, if I were the party that's delivering the asset, the seller or the short party in the contract, I'd find the cheapest beer I could find. And in this area, that might be Boone's Farm, which sells for under $3. So everybody understands in the futures contract that the short party will try to deliver the cheapest to deliver asset that meets the contract specifications. However, a hedger, say in the case where I'm trying to hedge a purchase of beer, I may require a different quality, a different date, or a different location than the futures contract. For this reason, most futures contracts are not held to maturity. They're unwound. So let's talk about this a little more. The overwhelming majority of futures contracts are unwound prior to expiration. Here's an example using Hershey Foods. Say Hershey has 100 long cocoa futures contracts and enters into a short futures contract just prior to expiration. And what they'll do is they'll make a profit based on the futures or the change in the futures price. So let's give a little more example or flesh this out a little bit more. Assuming Hershey, stock symbol HSY, goes long the 1-year December futures contract on, say, 1/1/2019, January 1st, 2019, and they went long a December futures contract, which is about a year away. However, right before that contract matures at the end of December, they're going to take a short position in the exact contract in which they went long on January 1. So effectively, at the end, with the exchange, Hershey Foods is going to have a long contract, which they put on at 1/1/2019, or whatever that futures price is. And that's the price in which they have to buy. However, on 12/15/2020, they put on a short contract in which they're going to deliver cocoa. In other words, they're going to receive the futures price. However, the exchange is not going to require them to deliver to themselves. So what's going to happen is they'll just calculate the difference between what they promised to buy it at and the price they committed to sell it at. In other words, their long price and then their short price. Take the difference times the multiplier. In this case, each contract is for 10 tons, and times the number of contracts. So in this case, they have hedged their exposure. In other words, if the price of cocoa goes up in both spot and forward markets or spot and futures markets, this price is going to go up, which is going to give them a profit between the price in which they originally went long and the new price at which they went short. So that's how they're going to hedge their overall exposure. They're going to enter into a contract to buy for a future delivery. However, before the contract matures, they're going to go short because they're not really sure about what's going to be delivered, about its quality and the location and exact dates. They're inconvenient for them, so they're just going to short out that contract and just get a payment equal to the difference in those prices. So here's the example, numerical example for Hershey Foods. And we'll go to the spreadsheet. On January 1, 2019, Hershey goes long 100 contracts at a futures price of $25.50 per ton. Each contract is for 10 tons. So the 10 is the contract multiplier. One contract is for 10 tons, but they got 100 contracts, which is 1,000 tons. At the time, the spot price of the Ivory Coast cocoa is $2,500. Now, let's just assume that Ivory Coast cocoa is the cheapest to deliver contract or asset for this contract specification. So they're going to go long those 100 contracts on 1/1/2019. And then just prior to maturity of the contracts, they're going to short the same December contract. Now this contract now has about a week to maturity. However, now they're long at $25.50 and short at $3,500. And let's see the effect. First of all, let's see if they did not hedge at all. If they did not hedge at all, they really want to buy 1,000 tons of cocoa. And if they didn't hedge, we'll assume that the spot price and futures price of that December contract in December is $3,500. So if they don't hedge at all, they would have paid $3.5 million for cocoa. However, they've entered into a contract, 100 contracts, with a multiplier of 10 to pay $25.50. So if they don't hedge and the price winds up at $3,500, they'll pay $3.5 million. But they have a futures contract that guarantees them the price of $25.50. So they are locked in to $2,550,000. However, this contract is not for a physical delivery of the asset. So what Hershey is actually going to do is they're going to purchase their cocoa for $3.5 million. If I can line that up, they're going to purchase their cocoa for $3.5 million. However, they're going to get a check from the exchange based on the difference in these two futures prices. I'll take the price in which they short it, that's the value they're going to receive, minus the price in which they went long, or that was their buy price, times that 10 contracts, times 10 quantity times the 100 contracts. So they're going to get a check from the exchange of $950,000, ignoring any margin interest. Now if I add up these two numbers, that is the $2.55 million that they've locked into. However, it's really paying $3.5 million for cocoa, but making $950,000 profit on the futures contract. Now, let me just show you, what if the price of cocoa goes to $5,000 in December? So the spot and futures price converge to $5,000. Notice, if they didn't hedge, they would have paid $5 million. But they've locked into $2.55 million. However, what's going to really happen is they're really going to buy their cocoa for $5 million and get a check from the exchange from $2.5 million. In the end, they have locked into this futures price. So this is how firms like Hershey that need to buy a commodity in the future can lock into that futures price without actually taking delivery of the asset by unwinding, taking the opposite position in the contract prior to maturity. So this is unwinding at Hershey Foods. Now let's talk about, for 1 minute, the farmer. What if the farmer also is looking to hedge the price of cocoa in December? What they simply would do is they take the opposite trades as Hershey. They would short 100 contracts, say on January 1st, and then if they didn't want to deliver using the contract terms for delivery dates and locations, they could simply then go long, do the opposite trade right before the maturity. In that case, they're going to make a profit if the price of cocoa falls in this case, and then they'll sell their cocoa in their local market at current spot prices in December. So in this topic, we talk about futures delivery, cheapest delivery to deliver, and unwinding of futures contracts.